Welcome back to another episode of Thumbprints and Signatures. Today we're highlighting a very special lens that dates back all the way to the 1930s. And I have right here the original 9cm f2.2 Thambar. Before I jump into today's episode, I just want to thank everyone for following along and watching us here on YouTube. It really means a lot to us that you get to enjoy and watch these videos. We don't get to post or make them as often, but I hope they prove to be a useful resource whether you're just starting your journey in photography or if you are already a master photographer and just want to see what lenses like this can do. So make sure to leave a comment down below on what lenses or what other kind of cameras you'd like to see here on our channel. And if you already haven't done so, make sure to like and subscribe and continue to follow us as we celebrate 10 years at Leica Store San Francisco and almost 25 years for Camera West. So anyway, thank you again for following along and watching, and you already know what to do. Go click those buttons. Produced from 1935 to 1939 as a screw-mount lens, the 9cm Thambar was specifically designed as a soft portrait lens. This lens yields a high degree of aberration, specifically spherical aberration, resulting in blurred highlights. The name Thambar is derived from the Greek term thambo, meaning blurred, which is pretty much how I would describe the signature of this lens. Since most of the lenses at the time were aimed to be high-performing, sharp lenses, Leica wanted to produce a lens that was soft and more flattering for portraits, and that's exactly what this lens does. The character of this lens is typically described as dreamy, ethereal, glowy, and soft, which is pretty ideal for a portrait lens. Now, this lens was made to be optically incorrect, thus allowing for a lot of those features to kind of push through. So it's kind of funny that Leica, who is known for very sharp optics, would inadvertently make a lens that goes against everything they're known for. Yet this lens produces such a unique signature that it's really hard to put into words. Though this lens has a dreamy and soft look, the lens is a bit more focused when you're using the silvered centered spot filter. Try saying that 7 times fast. While I was doing research for this lens, it was a little difficult to pinpoint exactly what the silver center spot filter does, but based on the 2 aperture markings on the lens, the red indicates with the filter on and the white indicates without the filter. So it looks like you go down about 0.1 stop. I don't know what that translates to, but I think it focuses the center so it's a little bit more sharp, so you can kind of control the look in its own way. But please let me know down in the comments what you think, or if you actually know what the silver center spot filter does. Maybe you can help me understand what this filter actually does. Later, this lens was reissued as an M mount in 2017, and according to Leica, it's a true reproduction of this lens and also sports the silver center spot filter. As you can see, this lens is pretty soft. I mounted it to an M11-P with a screw mount adapter so I could pull up the proper frame lines. Most of these daytime photos were shot at ISO 64 and at aperture priority with 2/3 of a stop underexposed, just so I could save some detail in the highlights. The lens itself definitely blows out the highlights in a interesting way. It's just this giant glowing pool of highlights. And especially depending on where you point the lens or how you're exposing for the scene, you can get a very mixed bag of results. So it's very hard to say exactly what and how you can get certain looks from this lens. Another thing that makes this lens very interesting is the minimum focus distance of 1 meter. You can get pretty close with this lens, which makes sense due to the fact that it is a portrait lens. I will say I found myself missing focus a lot because of not knowing exactly where things were in focus. And even when I was using live view, it was hard to tell if I was in focus. Even though I had a lot of fun walking around downtown just using the lens, I wanted to see what this lens could really do and what it was intended for. So I hit up my friend Jovi to make some portraits. As you can see, I shot a few portraits of him with the filter and without the filter. I don't really know if you can see too much of a difference. I think the no filter is obviously just a tad bit brighter, but I think the difference is very negligible in my opinion. But like I said, let me know down in the comments what you think. Right off the bat, you'll notice how dreamy the look of this lens is. The color looks soft, the background and out of focus areas render soft, but there's still a slight bit of sharpness in the center or wherever you place your focus point. And I think it's really interesting how in the highlight areas, it produces this glow, which Leica is also known for. Maybe this is the origin to where the Leica glow comes from. We walked around the Embarcadero Center, and luckily we had some really great lighting, and this proved to be a really good test on how this works as a portrait lens. So I did a few tests with and without the filter. I obviously shot the lens wide open most of the time, but I did take a few photos stop down, but I find that it just rendered like most modern lenses. I think if you're getting a lens like this, you want to shoot it wide open, you want the character, you just want to have fun with some of these optics because they aren't meant to be perfect. And specifically this one was not meant to be perfect. I really liked how this lens rendered color. It provided such a soft kind of pastel look, almost reminiscent to Sol Lighter, if you will. I think having error accurate lenses provides a lot of character, especially if you're going for a specific look. We talked a little bit about that in Mark's episode of Thumbprints and Signatures with the 50 1.2 Noctilux. That lens was made in the 60s, so if you shoot with it or make any images with it, you get a look or kind of representation of that time period. So I think this lens being from the 30s is a pretty true representation, or I guess it's not a true representation because it is a portrait lens, but I think to get this kind of glam, soft look in camera, I think it'll save you a bunch of time in editing or doing a crazy combination of filters to achieve this look. I think this lens works really best in contrasty lighting. You really get the full effect of the glow, and then you can kind of play with the photo or edit the photo and bring down the shadows and bring up the contrast. So you get this nice stark contrast in the photos, so you have a stylized look. Shooting this lens up close really gave the true signature and bokeh that you get from this lens. Aside from the glowy highlights, the out of focus areas and bokeh on this lens is truly unique. You get these really cool shapes, and it does this weird feathering kind of, I don't even know how to explain it. You can just see it in the photos. And as you may have noticed, the way that this lens renders light sources in the scene, I feel is very reminiscent of the halation that you get from Cinestill 800T, or just the Cinestill line in general. And so that got me thinking, how would a lens like the Thambar render on Cinestill 800T? All right, so we're out here in the outer Richmond. We're waiting till it gets a little bit darker, but I have the Thambar mounted to my Leica MP. So we're gonna shoot some film, and more specifically, Cinestill 800T. This is a tungsten balance film, so I'm kind of excited to see what it'll do at night. And we're gonna push this film to 6400. So I'm excited to see how the halation in the Cinestill will accentuate the character and bokeh of the Thambar. So I'm gonna load this into the camera now, and hopefully it'll get dark soon so we can shoot some photos of the marquee of the 4-star theater. All right, so minor setback, I didn't check the movie times and the lights never turned on, so we're at the Balboa Theater. So I'm excited to see how the halation in this film will partner with the lens bokeh. I think it's a marriage of modern technology with early 1930s technology. And then we're gonna actually push it 3 stops, so that's another big factor. And then set the light meter to ISO 6400. Oh man, these long focus throws, stiff focus ring. Okay, I gotta go further back. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna do a quick portrait of you. Actually, let me get you over by the theater. It could be kind of cool. Yeah, just go by like the railing over there.
Okay.
I think that could be kind of cool. Wow. These lights look really cool. So right off the bat, you can see the Thambar's signature in these string lights. I don't know if it was the combination of the Cinestill and the Thambar, but I definitely can see the Thambar's look and the Cinestill's look kind of coming together in a very harmonious way. I almost wish I was shooting something wider, but this is really cool. So one thing to know when you're using the center spot filter is there's two aperture scales on the side of the lens. Pretty much the red scale tells you what aperture to use when you're using this filter, because after you stop down after a certain point, the filter becomes visible with these bright lights. And the way that I'm shooting this film, I had to stop down to 6.3, and that's like the max that this filter can handle before you start seeing it in the image. I metered for the lights, so it doesn't really give you the same effect, but you can see that you still get some of the glow. Only if the moon was just like a little bit lower, that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, it's very interesting. The lens is a little stiff. Just gotta keep moving it, I guess. There we go. Let me do one quick close-up of your hat with the lights in the background.
All right.
I think that could be kind of cool. Where's a good light source? Nice. The color balance is a little different on the 800T versus the M11P's tungsten white balance setting. It's a little warmer versus the cooler tone of the film, but it was really interesting to see how these lenses rendered on two different mediums. And shout out to my friend Marcus for helping me film this portion of the video. Sick. Cool. So far, I think we're gonna get some good stuff because of the red lights, but we'll see. All right, one thing to keep in mind is the center spot filter and shooting film at night tricks the meter a little bit, so go figure. All right, so we have the camera cranked up to ISO 50,000, so we're maxing it out. And I guess we're gonna max out the Cinestill, so we'll see. Oh God, the light meter's going crazy. I can already hear it now. Where's the tripod? I don't have one. Focusing on a moving target in the dark with a 90. Terrible. But we'll see. All right, and that is the end of the roll there. Let's rewind this. All right, we're gonna mark this pushed 3 steps. Yeah. Boom. All right, this is gonna go to Underdog Film Lab and we'll check out the results. I will say that I had a lot of fun using this lens for the past few days. I think the character is something that is unique and special about this lens. And if you want to use it for any type of other photography, it'll suit that need for you. But I think the whole point of a lens like this is to shoot it wide open and make some portraits. I think you get a very fun way of rendering scenes, although it could be a little tiring at times trying to achieve critical focus with this lens, as this lens is really just meant to be soft. I think no matter how much or how hard you try to get in focus, it'll just always slightly be off. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a great way to soften the digital look. And I bet the way that this compares on film in the daytime is something magical. More importantly, this lens was built in a time where you didn't have AI, you didn't have Photoshop, you didn't have certain photographic techniques that we have today to augment your image. I think it's really cool to get the effect that you're going for in camera. I think it also inspired a lot of those tools for the future. Seeing the way that the lens rendered Cinestill film was actually really fun. It's an experiment I've been wanting to try for a really long time. I think I would maybe use a tripod next time because some of the shots were definitely underexposed. But it was fun being able to just try and handheld night photos, especially with pushing the film to ISO 6400. If I had had a tripod, I could probably do a fair test. I think digital sensors these days really push images to the limit, so you could use a lens like this at nighttime handheld. And I just want to quickly touch on the Reissue version of this lens. I wasn't able to shoot them side by side, but I had shot it in the past and I yielded similar results. I think it is a true and faithful representation or recreation of this lens. I think if you're looking for a lens to add character or soften up the digital look, this would be the lens to do it, or any screw mount lens for that matter. I think it's a great way to dive into the history of certain Leica optics like the Scimitar or the Sumerit. Maybe those will be future episodes. But anyway, that's gonna wrap up this episode of Thumbprints and Signatures. And once again, I wanna thank all of you again for watching and following along. So please make sure to comment down below what you think of this lens, what lenses you would like to see, or check out any of the other videos that we've seen on previous lenses. Make sure to like and subscribe. I also want to give a special shout out and thank you to my friends Jovi and Marcus for helping me with today's episode. And I want to give a special thank you to Underdog Film Lab in Oakland for developing and scanning the roll of film for today's episode. And with that, I'll see you next time.